Hello and welcome to City Edition, the City of Bend's video news magazine. I'm Justin Feinstone, the city's communications manager. In our lead story this month, we'll take an in-depth look at the water rate study conducted by the Public Works Department. City staff, mayor, and council will explain the need for the new fees and how the new rates will be structured.
The reason we're changing water rates right now is because we really have to make some significant improvements, not only to the underlying infrastructure there, but we're also being pushed by federal and state requirements that we need to be in compliance with going forward.
Well, it became clear to us many years ago, actually, that the rate structure in Bend has this kind of historic legacy of fixed rates, same amount charged no matter how much you use. And so we're trying to change over to a rate structure that is more fair and actually encourages one of our big problems here, which is conservation.
Our source of water up in the Bridge Creek watershed is one of the oldest, I believe, in the state. The water that comes down from that watershed area comes through two pipes that go back to the 1920s. And the integrity of those pipes is of great concern to the Water Division.
This facility you see behind me is the intake structure that was built in the 1920s that supplies the city with its surface water supply. This facility is in need of update, repair, that is going to be quite expensive.
Behind me is the Bridge Creek watershed, which the City of Bend chose as its source of supply in 1924. We've been using it successfully since then.
The surface water supply is conveyed to the city through two transmission mains, each approximately 11 miles long. Both of these transmission mains are showing signs of stress.
Another challenge of the existing infrastructure is encroachment of the public along the pipeline route.
Encroachment is where we have actual facilities, garages, parts of homes built on top of these transmission mains.
When the pipeline was built in 1924, 25, and 26, people didn't live in this area.
We have driveways that go over our water lines. This is not the intentions we have with our right-of-way, so we need to work with our citizens, with the county, and other city departments in clearing up these encroachments in the right-of-ways.
We also have encroachment by trees and shrubs and plant material that wasn't there when the pipeline was put in. That puts it at risk of failure from windstorms, root encroachment, and other problems.
In addition to the aging infrastructure, we also have a threat of fire within our watershed. Currently, we estimate we have about 40% of the timber within the watershed is standing dead. This is at a serious threat for a lightning strike.
We've met with the U.S. Forest Service and evaluated that area. It's not a matter of if, but when a fire is going to happen in that watershed. A fire in that watershed will mean that there'll be more erosion of the surrounding soils in that watershed into the Bridge Creek stream.
And in that case, we would lose 50% of the city's annual water supply.
That's going to require in the future that we have a water treatment facility that will be able to filter out the sediment that gets into that stream.
Part of the revenue increases that we need is to address additional regulatory requirements.
One of the major regulatory drivers is complying with new EPA regulations for our surface water supply.
The EPA is requiring that we have surface water treatment, filter treatment, on our supply by 2012.
Once we put those filters in place, that'll really take down the percentage of danger from Bridge Creek fire, because water coming out of there, if it's hurt from the fire, we'll be able to filter it and still use it.
The estimated cost of replacing the transmission mains and getting us compliant with regulatory drinking water standards is approximately $50 million. That will need to be done within the next 5 years.
The City of Bend is one of the luckiest water providers in the state in the fact that we have a dual source supply. 50% of our water supply comes from Bridge Creek.
The remaining 50% of our water supply comes from wells throughout our city that are scattered at locations throughout the city right now.
The City of Bend is really fortunate that we're not reliant on only one source of water.
I'm standing in front of well site number 2 by Art Station, and this is one of the sources.
And what that does, it just gives us a lot more flexibility. It enables us to better meet the demands of the city, because obviously during the summer months you have much more increase in that.
During the summer months, our water system is barely adequate to supply the huge amounts of water that are needed for people watering their lawns, landscaping of all types.
2007 was the last year of our previous rate study, and so we are starting on two pieces of a significant rate change, and that is a new rate structure, as well as determining our new revenue increases for the next 5 years.
The water system is supported by two sources of revenues: water rates, which is what you pay through your monthly bill, and also system development charges, or SDCs, which is what developers pay when they pick up a building permit.
Well, the council realized that we were going to be reviewing the water rates anyway, but one of the things that Councilor Jim Clinton said, you know, we need to figure out looking at the structure per se, because we don't really have any incentives, or one could say disincentives, in place to really encourage people to conserve. You've got a flat rate fee, basically. There's no incentive at all. And that was one of the directions of the council.
Yeah, just as the council directs in many other issues, we have assigned the task to a citizen committee of looking in great depth at the rate structure, what other communities are doing, and what we should be doing here for solving our water problems in the future.
They met hundreds of hours, put together, I think, a really good recommendation of what I'd say is a good first step. We're obviously going to need to go forward with public hearings and get more input from the broader community.
The committee looked at a rate structure that would be equitable for a wide range of water users.
They really are pushing towards a tiered process, something that really puts in alignment the incentives for citizens to continue to conserve water.
Council directed us to really look at the rate structure and how we recover that revenue and bring it into the modern age.
The council asked the committee to come back with a rate structure that was fair, one that encouraged conservation.
We were looking for a rate structure that would not only solve our problems in the next few years, but be active in looking to solve problems in the future. And finally, we want to make sure that the rate structure is not an additional burden on low-income people on fixed income, because after all, having clean water is a necessity.
Currently, low water users are paying for and offsetting the costs of high water users.
To really sum up the new rate structure goals, we want to entice all of our customers to be as efficient as they can. That will bring down long-term operating costs, as well as delay infrastructure needs over the long term, so we can keep the system operating at its potential best.
The water rates and SDCs are both calculated based on the needs of the system. The needs of the system are really great. For the next 5 years, our capital improvements are anywhere from 70 to 80 million, and annual operating costs are over 12 million.
Any additions that are caused by federal mandates and state mandates, the ratepayer ultimately has to bear the burden of that. So if we as a community can use our resources more efficiently, it will benefit all of us.
So on top of the increasing financial needs, which requires us to have a rate increase, we also have to change our rate structure to a conservation-based rate structure. So that means the more water you use, the more you pay.
What the council directs is we want to have incentives in place to really reward those users that either don't use very much or are able to implement conservation techniques that minimize the use of water. And again, we think that should be reflected in the price that they pay.
It was a unanimous decision that conservation must be a part of the rate structure.
The current rate structure is pretty simple. We have a 600 cubic feet minimum usage, and then a volume rate beyond 600 cubic feet. The inclining block rate that we're going to, we will have a 400 cubic feet minimum usage and 4 volume rates beyond 400 cubic feet.
This new rate structure, we believe, reflects the values that the citizens hold, our water users. And so I think there's going to be many benefits that accrue to all of us for changing this rate structure, including, and because of conservation, delayed infrastructure, a more efficient use of water, less energy use, more water in the aquifer and the river systems.
Early estimates are we should be saving 15 to 20% of the water that we're currently using by giving people an incentive to be more conservative.
There will be more public hearings before the City Council, and I'd encourage everyone who has an interest in this issue to show up and weigh in and tell us what you think.
I think one thing that I really want to make clear is that oftentimes when proposals are brought before City Council, people feel, oh, it's a done deal, and I want to really stress that that's not the case. I mean, we think that's a good starting place, but I'm sure we will hear from different people. I really anticipate there will be some tweaks going forward, and I encourage citizens and businesses to weigh in.